Have you ever felt like the whole world was playing a cruel joke on you? Like you spent years building your life from scratch, only to be dragged down by people who do nothing but demand from you? I know that feeling better than anyone. I've had to fend for myself since I was very young, only to realize after all these years of hard work that my family never really saw me as one of their own. To them, I was just a backup plan, someone they could toss aside when not needed, yet exploit the moment they had the chance. My name is Natalie. I'm a single woman, 33 years old, living in Texas. I have a younger brother, Jake, 30, who's been spoiled by our parents like a prince his whole life. Not the gifted golden child type, but the kind who gets away with everything, never held accountable for anything. And then there's someone I particularly can't stand, Jake's wife, Melissa. She can cry on command to manipulate people, but when no one's looking, she's sharp as a knife and just as toxic. Jake and Melissa have 3 kids, and the fourth was just born a few weeks ago. A 3-bedroom house is not big enough for them, but instead of becoming independent, they continue clinging to my parents' home, living off what they call generosity, though it's more like blind devotion, from my parents. My parents, who have always favored Jake since we were little, see helping him as their duty. And me, I'm the outsider, never given any kind of special treatment, not even a little. Since I was a kid, I knew Jake was the chosen one. If I did something wrong, I got punished harshly. If Jake messed up, it was all smoothed over with a pat on the head and an excuse. When I was 17, I worked part-time after school to save for college, while Jake got a brand new truck for his 16th birthday. My parents said I needed to be independent, while Jake didn't have to worry about a thing. I used to hope that things would change when we became adults, that I'd finally have the chance to shape my life without being treated unfairly, but I was wrong. Jake and Melissa live their lives with no concern for anyone but themselves. Melissa has a college degree but never uses it. Her excuse? I'm a mom, that's a full-time job. But we all know who actually takes care of the kids. My mom. Meanwhile, Jake has a steady office job but doesn't earn enough to support a family of 6, especially with a wife who spends like they're rich. I've lost count of how many times I've visited my parents' house only to see complete chaos, Melissa lying on the couch scrolling through Facebook while my mom runs around cleaning, cooking, and watching the kids. My dad always avoids everything, like he wants no part in the mess he helped create. And Jake? He's always complaining that life is hard, that he can't handle it all, that he deserves more than this. And me? I just stand there, wondering why they never stop asking for more. I did everything the way I was told to. I went to college, got a stable job, bought my own house and car without borrowing a cent from anyone. I never asked my parents for money, never needed their help. I'm not a genius, but I know how to take care of myself. Something no one else in my family seems capable of doing. And yet, in their eyes, I'm the selfish one. I still remember the last time I dropped by my parents' house. I just wanted to visit my mom, but the moment I walked through the door, I heard Melissa's mocking laugh. Natalie's here. Don't you have your fabulous solo life to get back to? Her voice was dripping with sarcasm. Jake sat nearby, holding the newborn, eyes glued to the TV. Must be nice not having to care for anyone but yourself. My mom stepped out from the kitchen, looking tired but trying to smile. Natalie, stay for dinner? I looked around the house, toys scattered all over the floor, the kitchen a mess because Melissa never lifted a finger. Jake sat there like it was all completely normal. I used to think I could ignore it all, but I couldn't, because I knew it was only a matter of time before they found a way to use me. And I was right. I don't know what's worse, my dad's indifference, my mom's favoritism, or Jake and Melissa's endless greed. But one thing I do know, I won't let them drag me down again. And I had no idea the real nightmare was just beginning. I don't remember the last time I felt loved in this family. Maybe when I was very young, before I was old enough to realize that, to my parents, I was just an unimportant side character. Jake, my brother, was the center of their universe. I remember when I was little, whenever I got a good grade or won an award at school, my mom would barely nod, then turn to praise Jake for not spilling his drink. I used to think if I tried harder, they'd notice me. But no matter what I did, Jake got the praise and I got the cold shoulder. Jake could do anything and never face consequences. I, on the other hand, couldn't get away with a single mistake. One time, when I was 13, I refused to give Jake my savings so he could buy a new toy. He got mad, yanked the money box out of my hands, and smashed it on the floor. I screamed, but instead of scolding him, my mom just shook her head at me. "You're the older sister, you should give in to your brother." Those words were on repeat throughout my childhood. I had to give in, I had to sacrifice, I had to endure. I moved out the day I turned 18, not because I wanted to, but because I had no choice. The day before my birthday, my dad walked into my room, arms crossed, looking at me like I was some intruder. "We can't keep supporting you. You're old enough to take care of yourself now." Just like that. No encouragement, no hesitation, just a brief statement, like I was an old item they wanted to toss out. I had nowhere to go, no one to turn to. I had to find a job, rent a tiny apartment, and try to make ends meet. Meanwhile, Jake still got to stay at home, still pampered by our parents like a child, even though he was 15. I tried not to go back, but whether I liked it or not, family was something that haunted my mind. I still called during the holidays, still tried to keep in touch, only to realize they had never really missed me. Every conversation was about Jake, what he was doing, how he was feeling, whether he needed anything. I was like a faded shadow in this family. Then the COVID-19 pandemic hit. My company downsized, and I was one of the people laid off. I didn't have enough savings to survive for long. When my lease expired, I couldn't renew it because I couldn't afford it anymore. I had to sell almost all of my belongings, keeping only the essentials. When I realized I was about to become homeless, I did something I never thought I would do. I called my mom. "Can I park my camper in your yard for a while, just until I find a new job?" She was silent for a long time. I had hoped, just a tiny bit, that she would say yes. But then she said something that made my world collapse. "If you want to park in the yard, you'll have to pay rent, at least as much as an apartment." I was speechless. "Are you serious? I don't have any money. That's why I need help." "Your father and I already have enough burdens, Natalie. We can't keep supporting you." I let out a bitter laugh. They had never supported me a single day in my life, but I still tried to keep my emotions in check. "What about Jake? He still lives there, and Melissa does nothing all day." My mom sighed like I was bothering her. "Jake has a family to take care of, Natalie." "You're different." Different? Did she mean I wasn't worth helping like Jake was? I couldn't take it anymore. "Forget it. I don't need your pity." I hung up. I thought I could handle anything, but in that moment I realized a painful truth. I never really had a family. I parked my camper in a Walmart lot that first night. It was dark, and I couldn't sleep because I was scared someone might knock on the door and take the little I had left. That feeling, the knowledge that you have no one to rely on, is terrifying. But the worst part wasn't being denied help. The worst part was realizing that Jake and Melissa knew what I was going through, and they thought it was funny. I got a message from Jake's number. "Hey Natalie, do you need me to send you a blanket? Wouldn't want you to get cold in your cheap tin box." Right after that came a photo of Melissa, smiling wide in the spacious living room of my parents' house, with a caption. "You can apply to be a cleaner here if you want. We're short on help." I clenched my phone in my hand. I had thought I could tolerate the unfairness, that I could just ignore them, but I couldn't. For the first time in my life, I realized I wasn't that abandoned child anymore. I wasn't going to let them walk all over me again. I lived in my camper for nearly a year. No one in my family reached out to me, not that it surprised me, I was used to being forgotten. But being rejected by your own blood, laughed at, while you're struggling to survive, still made me so angry I could hardly breathe. Those first days were terrible. I parked in all kinds of places, from Walmart lots to hidden roadside corners where no one paid attention to an old truck with a camper attached. Every night I slept on edge, afraid someone might try to break in, or that the police would knock on my window and tell me to leave. But I had no choice. I had to survive. I threw myself into job hunting. I sent out hundreds of applications, but during the pandemic, no one wanted to hire someone unemployed with no permanent address. I tried to take any job I could find, no matter how temporary: warehouse lifting, fast food service, even delivery driving with my old truck. Those days were a draining loop of working, sleeping in my car, and living off cheap meals. I learned to shower at the gym and used a small jug of water to wash my face in the morning. Life was miserable, but I didn't give up. Then luck finally smiled on me. One morning, while I was sleeping in the camper, my phone buzzed. It was an email from an industrial equipment company. They needed an office assistant. The pay wasn't great, but it was the first stable job I'd had in a year. I threw myself into the work with wild determination. I took extra shifts, accepted every task I could to earn more money. I had lost everything once. I wasn't going to let it happen again. I eventually saved enough to rent a small room. I didn't have to sleep in the camper anymore. I pinched every penny of my paycheck, cut out every unnecessary expense. I didn't go out, didn't eat out, didn't shop for anything I didn't absolutely need. I had one goal: to buy a house. 8 months later, I got promoted. I wasn't just an office assistant anymore. I was also in charge of part of the company's operations management. My new salary brought me closer to my dream. And then, that day finally came. Here is the translated text in American English with no additions. I found a small 3-bedroom house in the suburbs. It wasn't a fancy mansion, but it was mine. A real roof over my head. No more sleeping in an old camper parked in the shadows. No more worrying about where I'd sleep the next day. The day I held the keys in my hand, I stood in front of the house, feeling like it was both real and unreal. I had done it. I had gotten back on my feet, all on my own. And then I made a mistake. I posted about my new home on social media. Finally have a place to call home, no more sleeping in my car. Thank you, me, for not giving up. I didn't think much of it when I posted. I just wanted to celebrate, but I forgot one important thing. My family was still watching. Not even a day later, my phone started buzzing nonstop, messages, missed calls, all from my family. Jake, so you've got a new house? Nice. Melissa, 3 bedrooms? What? Does someone living alone need that much space for? My mom, Natalie, we need to talk. I didn't reply to any of them. I knew exactly what they were thinking. They didn't care whether I lived or died all this time, but now that I had a house, suddenly they remembered I existed? 2 days later, the thing I feared most happened. One afternoon after work, I drove home and saw an SUV parked right in front of the house. And then I saw them. Jake, Melissa, my mom, they stood there, looking at my house like it was something they were entitled to. I pulled over, got out, and crossed my arms as I looked at them. "You're finally home," Melissa exclaimed, as if she was genuinely happy. My mom stepped forward and lightly patted my arm. "We need to talk, Natalie, about this house." I had seen this coming, but even knowing it, I still felt a surge of anger rising inside me. They weren't here to congratulate me. They were here to take what I had just reclaimed. I stood at the door, staring at them like they had just stepped out of my worst nightmare. Jake stood with his arms crossed, eyeing the place like he was judging whether it was good enough for him. Melissa had that fake smile on her face, and my mom stood in the middle, pretending to be the peacemaker. I sighed and crossed my arms. "What are you doing here?" My mom gave a forced smile. "Natalie, don't be so rigid. Family's supposed to visit each other." "Visit?" I raised an eyebrow. "You didn't contact me for a whole year, and now that I have a house, you suddenly remember I'm your daughter?" She pressed her lips together, but didn't argue. Jake, of course, had no shame. He clapped me on the shoulder hard enough to almost make me step back. "3 bedrooms, huh? Must be lonely living here all by yourself." Melissa chimed in, her voice shrill like she was acting in some cheap play. "Exactly! Jake and I are crammed into that tiny house of your parents, and the kids need more space. And you, living alone in such a big house. It just seems off, doesn't it?" I felt my blood start to boil. "What exactly are you trying to say?" I asked coldly. Jake sighed like he was explaining something obvious to a child. "We're just saying, instead of wasting all this space, why not let us have the house? You could move back into your camper. You lived in it before, right? You're used to it." My heart sank, but then I laughed. A bitter, sharp laugh. Let me get this straight. I stepped forward, arms crossed, staring him dead in the eye. When I was homeless, did any of you care whether I lived or died? When I begged to park my camper in your yard? Mom told me I had to pay the same as rent for an apartment. You all mocked me, called me homeless. I paused, emphasizing every word. But now that I have a house, suddenly you want to take it? Melissa pouted, feigning innocence. We're not taking it, sis, just sharing it. Jake nodded like it made total sense. Yeah, family's supposed to help each other out. I let out a sharp laugh. Help? None of you have helped me a single day in my life. My mom jumped in, trying to regain control. Natalie, you can't be so selfish. Do you know how hard it is to raise kids? Jake has 4 children to care for. This house would be a better environment for them. And you don't need all this space. Oh, really? What about your house, Mom? I smirked. If Jake needs a better environment for his kids, you can let him have your house. What do you need 3 bedrooms for? Silence fell for a few seconds. My mom's face changed color. That's not the point, she snapped. This is about you. That's right, it is about me. And this is my house, I stressed every word. And not one of you is going to live here, not even for a day. Jake scoffed in frustration. You really are selfish. I crossed my arms. Selfish? Take a good look at yourself. You're trying to steal my house without offering to pay a single cent in rent. Isn't that selfish? Melissa suddenly got angry. She stepped forward and pointed a finger in my face. You're disgusting. You'd rather let this house sit empty than help your own family? Don't you care about the kids at all? I tilted my head, my tone dripping with sarcasm. Did you care about the kids when you helped throw me out on the street? That set her off. Melissa screamed and lunged at me with her hands raised, her long nails aiming straight for my face. But I was ready. I held up my phone, the screen glowing with the video recording icon. I'm recording, Melissa. If you lay a hand on me, I'll sue you for assault. She froze mid-lunge, her furious eyes widening. Jake pulled her back, but she kept yelling insults at me. My mom stepped forward, her expression colder than ever. You have 1 week to reconsider, Natalie. I gave a dry laugh. No need to reconsider. I'm not changing my mind. She shot me a glare, then motioned for Jake and Melissa to leave. I stood there, watching them walk out the door like defeated intruders. But I knew it wasn't over. And I wasn't going to let them win. I knew they'd come back. I had mentally prepared for it. A week later, just as I expected, they showed up at my doorstep. This time it was only my mom and Jake. Melissa didn't come, but I was sure she was behind the scenes pulling strings. The moment I opened the door, my mom stepped forward, her face covered in a fake, gentle expression. Natalie, have you thought it over? The family needs you, needs this house. I know you're a good person. You won't let your brother and the kids suffer, right? I crossed my arms and stared at her. The answer's still the same. No. Jake stepped forward, his tone sharper. You're being unreasonable, Natalie. You have more space than you need. We're just asking for a stable place for our family. Doesn't that sound fair to you? I laughed. Fair? I've never heard anything more absurd. You have a family. Go find your own house instead of trying to steal mine. His face darkened. You're just an ungrateful, selfish brat. My mom cut in, her tone now icy. Natalie, you're going to regret this decision. I shrugged, stepped out onto the porch, and pointed toward the street. Get out of my house. Now. She gave me a threatening look before dragging Jake away. But as they got into the car, I saw a strange smile on his face. A smile that sent a chill down my spine. 3 days later, when I got home after a long day at work, I saw a truck parked right in front of my house. I stopped the car, my heart pounding in my chest. I had a terrible feeling. And as I approached the door, I realized the worst had happened. The lock had been changed. Not believing my eyes, I tried my key, but just as I feared, it didn't work. My breathing grew heavy as I heard children laughing and familiar voices inside. They had actually done it. I pulled out my phone and immediately dialed 911 and said, I'm the legal owner of this home. A group of people has illegally changed the locks and occupied my house. Less than 15 minutes later, two police cars pulled up in front of my house. When the officers knocked, Jake opened the door, his face glowing with smug satisfaction. Well, Natalie, I guess you've changed your mind. I pointed directly at him. This isn't your house. The police are going to remove you right now. Jake crossed his arms, looking completely calm. Oh, you really think it's going to be that easy to kick us out? He patted his pocket and pulled out a stack of papers. Fact is, you rented this house to us, and here's the lease agreement. I snatched the paper from his hand, my heart pounding. He had actually forged a lease agreement. I looked down at the signature at the bottom of the page, and immediately I laughed. Jake, you've never even seen my signature, have you? This looks nothing like mine. The officer took the paper, glanced over it, then nodded. We'll verify this lease, but if it turns out to be a forgery, you could be charged with fraud and unlawful occupancy. Jake's face turned pale. Melissa burst out of the house, holding their youngest child, trying to play the victim. Please, we have kids. We can't just be thrown out like this. The officer kept a cold expression. You can leave now or be forcibly removed. The choice is yours. Jake gritted his teeth. Are you happy now, Natalie? Look at these children. What are you doing to your own family? I crossed my arms and looked straight at him. No. You're the one hurting this family. You tried to steal something that doesn't belong to you, and now you're going to face the consequences. Melissa screamed, tears streaming down her face, but I didn't care anymore. The officer motioned to Jake. Gather your things and leave, now. Jake stormed inside to collect his stuff, while Melissa kept crying and whining. After they left, I stood at the door as the officers changed the lock for me. The older officer turned to me. They might come back. Be careful. I nodded. I know, but I won't let them take anything from me ever again. I stepped inside, locked the door, and let out a long, quiet breath. The battle may have ended today, but I knew they hadn't given up. And neither had I. It had enough. After the police forced Jake and Melissa out of my home, I knew they wouldn't stop. They had never been able to accept defeat. I needed to protect myself, not just with locks or security cameras, but with the truth. I opened my phone, logged into my social media account, and started typing. This is the story of my family, the ones who abandoned me when I was homeless, mocked me while I struggled living in a camper, and now that I've finally bought a house with my own hard work, tried to steal it from me. I laid it all out, every detail. How they refused to let me park my camper in their yard when I had nowhere to go. How Jake and Melissa laughed at me, called me homeless while they lived rent-free in my parents' house. How they tried to force their way into my home, expecting me to move back into the camper so they could use the house without offering to pay a dime. And the worst part, how they rented a moving truck, changed the locks, and forged a lease agreement to take my property. To prove I wasn't making it up, I attached the video from my phone. Melissa lunging at me, Jake claiming my house belonged to the family, and the police ordering them to leave. I hit post. In less than an hour, the post exploded. I received message after message, phone calls from relatives. Natalie, is this real? Did Jake really do that? Oh my God, your mother really tried to force you to give your house to Jake. Melissa attacked you? I didn't need to say anything more. The evidence was clear. And just like that, the mask my family had worn for years started to fall apart, piece by piece. Relatives who had once believed my mother and Jake now turned their backs on them. They could no longer paint me as the cold daughter who abandoned her family, not when they were the true betrayers. My uncle, who had always taken my mother's side, sent a blunt message. I can't believe you'd do this to your own daughter. Don't contact me again. Even people who used to tell me to try to understand, Jake changed their tune. Jake needs to learn to take responsibility for his own life. He's gone too far. My family lost their support. No one believed their excuses anymore. And then, just as I expected, Melissa couldn't stay quiet for long. 2 days later, she started posting vague statuses about me on social media. It's sad when people in your own family are willing to throw you away over a house. We tried so hard, but kindness isn't always returned. Immediately, a few of her friends jumped in to comfort her, but then those who knew the truth began to speak up. Kindness? Melissa, do you not remember trying to attack your sister-in-law in her own house? Why don't you clarify who changed the locks on someone else's home and forged a lease agreement? If you really needed a house, why not get a job instead of trying to steal someone else's? Within a day, her post was flooded with criticism. Some even screenshotted my post and pasted it under hers to show the truth. Backed into a corner, Melissa deleted the post. But she still didn't give up. The next day, she posted again, this time trying to sound more pitiful. As a mother, I just want what's best for my kids, but it's so painful when some people only care about themselves and not about family. I nearly laughed out loud. She really thought that just by changing her tone, the public would take her side? Wrong move. This time, no one defended her. In fact, a few of her old friends even came forward with things they had been too polite to say before. Melissa, don't act like you're a devoted mother. Who was the one letting her mother-in-law raise the kids while she partied all the time? It's funny you talk about sacrifice when you're the one who almost got your husband fired because of your reckless spending. Melissa vanished from social media after that. I knew she would never admit she was wrong, but at least for the first time in her life, she couldn't manipulate anyone anymore. I sat on my couch, looking at my post again. It had nearly 10,000 shares, an incredible number. Not only had I taken back control of my house, but I had exposed their lies to the world. They had lost everything, the trust of our relatives, the support of the community, and most importantly, their ability to manipulate me. They might still try something, but this time I was ready, and I would never let them step foot in my house again. My life gradually returned to normal after exposing my family's charade. I no longer feared them showing up unannounced or trying to take over my home. To make use of the extra space, I decided to rent out the 2 spare bedrooms. Both tenants were friends of mine from college, Liam and Chris. They were both mature, respectful men who valued personal space. They had stable jobs, caused no trouble, and always paid rent on time. That money covered most of my mortgage, making my finances more stable than ever. While I enjoyed my new life in peace, my family fell into chaos, and I soon discovered that the battle between us wasn't completely over. One Saturday afternoon, as I was relaxing with a cup of coffee on the porch, my parents showed up out of nowhere. No warning, no message. Just rang the doorbell and waited for me to open the door. I sighed, already sensing nothing good would come from this visit. My mom wore a fake, pleasant smile while my dad looked tense. Without waiting for an invitation, they walked in like they still had some kind of authority here. "Natalie, sweetie, have you changed your mind?" my mom began in that falsely sweet tone. Change my mind about what? I crossed my arms, leaning against the kitchen counter, eyeing her cautiously. My dad cleared his throat, then spoke. "Jake needs a place of his own, you know that. He can't live with us forever. We want you to help him rent an apartment. After all, you're not a burden on the family like he is. You can afford it, right?" I let out a sharp laugh. "You mean I should pay out of my own pocket to rent a place for Jake? The same guy who tried to steal this house from me? Wow, what a generous request." I shook my head. My mom instantly changed her tone. "Jake is your brother. You have more than he does. Can't you help even just a little?" "No," I replied bluntly. "I don't owe him anything. If he wants to rent a place, he should earn the money himself." My mom pretended to sniffle, and my dad was at a loss for words. They hadn't expected that I had changed. I was no longer the timid daughter they could manipulate. Getting nothing from me, they left in defeat. But I knew this wouldn't be the last time. A week later, shocking news spread through the family. Jake discovered Melissa had been cheating on him. And the biggest blow? The youngest child wasn't his. Jake had been suspicious for a while, but it wasn't until he secretly had a DNA test done that the truth came out. Melissa couldn't deny it. She cried, begged, and then tried to blame Jake, saying he didn't spend enough time with her, that she felt lonely. but no excuse could change the fact that she had betrayed him for years. Jake was furious and kicked her out of the house. My parents were horrified, but there was nothing they could do except accept the truth. Jake filed for divorce immediately and fought for custody of the 3 remaining children. Melissa, after being kicked out, looked for a way to get revenge. And the first person she targeted, of course, was me. One late night, just as I was getting ready for bed, the doorbell rang over and over. When I checked the security camera, I saw Melissa standing at my front door, clutching her phone, her face full of rage. I didn't open the door. She started banging on it, shouting, "Open the door, Natalie. You ruined my life." I stood with my arms crossed, watching through the camera, shaking my head in frustration. She kept screaming, pounding on the door, and even threw a small rock at my living room window. Immediately, I picked up the phone and called the police. Less than 10 minutes later, a police car pulled up in front of my house. Melissa was forced to leave, but before she did, she shouted, "I won't let this go." But this time, I was ready to protect myself. The next morning, I filed for a restraining order against Melissa. With the video footage from my security camera showing her behavior, the judge approved it immediately. From that point on, Melissa wasn't allowed to come near me or send harassing messages. She had lost all control, and no one was on her side anymore. Jake was granted custody of the children, while Melissa was only allowed weekend visitation. But after a few months, she didn't even bother showing up to see the kids anymore. My family was now nothing but a mess of regret and brokenness. As for me, I was enjoying my new life, free, peaceful, and no longer under anyone's control. And this time, no one could take anything from me again. Natalie's story is a powerful reminder that not all families are a source of support, and that blood ties don't always guarantee love or fairness. She was manipulated and used by her parents and brother, but through persistence and self-respect, she took back control of her life. The story also shows that late regret can't erase past wounds. In the end, cutting off toxic relationships isn't selfish, it's necessary to protect yourself and live a happy life. What do you think about Natalie's story? Was she too harsh, or was it exactly what she needed to do to protect herself? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful real-life stories about family, greed, and independence.